Okay, this module we're going to talk about chord construction and intervals. It's important for you to understand where I'm coming from when I'm using the terms flat third, seventh, fifth, fourth. What do these things mean and why are they important? And if you know what they mean already, you could skip to the next module. But I can't emphasize enough how important it is knowing the intervals that you're playing. You just don't want to be memorizing shapes and fingerings. You want to know, okay, not only what notes am I playing, but how are those notes related back to this scale? And the important strong tones like your roots, your flat thirds, your fifths, your sevenths, flat sevenths, because you're going to be landing on those notes a lot perhaps and emphasizing those. And if you listen to really excellent players like a guy like Al Di Meola, for example, who I really like because not only his technique is pretty flawless, especially when it comes to his picking. Everyone should watch some of his videos at least and listen to his playing because he's amazing. The way his technique is so flawless. He picks every note. He doesn't use hammer-ons or pull-offs or sweep picking. But the thing that I really like about his playing too is that he really emphasizes those notes that make up the chord tones. Really spends a lot of time playing and emphasizing off and ending his phrases on strong notes, roots and thirds and fifths, flat sevens, depending of course on the chord that he's playing. So it's very important to understand these concepts. And sometimes you might not always want to land on those. Sometimes it's nice to land on like a weaker tone, like a fourth or a sixth, because it's kind of unexpected, or a second. A guy like Jeff Beck will do that a lot. He'll land on some of the other tones that maybe aren't as strong, but still can give you kind of a cool sound. So to understand this, you have to understand that music theory pretty much falls back to the major scale. I said this before in these modules. All music theory is compared to the major scale. The major scale is the standard. You have to have one thing that's a standard. Everything's compared to that. In music, it's the major scale. And everyone knows that. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? If I play it in G, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Wherever you play that. Right, I'm playing it in G all over the neck. You know? Wherever. Okay, so what does this mean when I say, well, what's a third of a G? What's the fourth of a G? A G major triad is made of a root, a third, and a fifth. Well, what that means is all you're doing is you're just playing the notes of the major scale in that given key. The notes are assigned a value, and it goes in order. So for the G major scale, any major scale is built by just taking your root or your first note, going whole step, half step, whole step, half step. That's how you build any major scale in any key. So for G, the notes are G, A is a whole step, B, another whole step, C, another whole step. I'm sorry, that's a half step. C is a half step. Whole step to D, whole step to E, half step to F. Back to G, our root. 7 notes in that major scale. You just assign a number or a degree to each note in order. The root is your 1. The second note is A, that's your 2. That's your second. In the key of G, your second is an A. It's the second note in the G major scale. Your third would be your B. Third note in G major scale. Your fourth is C, fifth is D, sixth is E, seventh is F sharp. And then your eighth note, your octave, you're back to your 1 again. So you're basically just writing out the notes on the scale and assigning a number to them in order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And everything is compared to that. So like if you wanted to play minor chord, has a flat third in it, and you wanted to play a minor or a minor note or a minor scale, you have to flatten the third. So a flat third in the key of G is the third note in the scale we just said is a B. So if you flat it, it's going to be a B flat. And that's basically how this works. Just a different degree for each note of the scale. So if you wanted to play a G major chord, that's made of a major chord's formula is a root, a third, and a fifth. So you play the first note in the scale, the third note in the scale, and the fifth note in the scale, and you have a G major chord. So for G, you would play your G, your third note is the B, your fifth note is a D. And as you can see here in G major chord, there's my G, there's my fifth or my D, there's my B, my third, and I have G major. No matter where you play it. Another G major here. There's my G, there's my D, there's my G again, There's my B, G major. So all you're doing for your different chords or chord construction is you're following the formulas and just using those degrees of the major scale. A C major chord or C major triad is a C, an E, and a G. Here's my C major scale. Same thing. Whole step, half step, whole, half. I just play it in the key of C. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. If I want to play a C major chord, that's made up of the root, the C, the E, which is my third, my G, root, third, and fifth. And that's pretty much all it is. And then you just have different formulas for different chords. Like a minor chord is a root, flat, third, fifth. So instead of playing your major third, you would just back it up a half step and play the flat third. Seventh chord or dominant seventh has a flatted seventh, built off the major, root, third, fifth, flat, seventh. So take the seventh note in the scale and flatten it. You want to have a ninth, play a nine chord, is built off the major, root, third, fifth, flat, seven, and then nine. So you're just pretty much counting and assigning a number. So if anyone says, well, what's the fifth of an A? Play an A major scale and count up 5 notes, and there's your E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A quick way to find, because 1, 4, 5s are so important, a quick way to find, as I call this a 1, 4, 5 finder, is if you're on the 6th string, any 6th string root, put your first finger, for instance, in G, on the G, your perfect fourth will always fall directly below it on the A string, and then I'll go up a whole step from that on the A string and you have your fifth. So in the key of G, your 1, 4, 5 is a G, then your 4 is a C, fifth is a D, and that works for any key. In B, here's your B, your 1, your 4 would be the E, and your 5 is the F sharp. 1, 4, 5, no matter what key you're in. So that's a nice, easy way to find it. So we're going to spend a lot of time in the coming modules talking about landing on certain strong tones, landing on certain intervals that really make a statement when you're soloing. If I'm playing a C minor chord or a C minor seventh, I might want to outline that chord by landing on the flat third, the E flat. And this way you can make really strong solo statements or pick out another strong note in the chord, like the flat seventh if I'm playing a minor seventh, or the fifth. Much stronger than landing on like the fourths or the seconds. Not that those notes would sound out of key if you hit them, but there's good notes and then there's ones that'll really stand out even better. I do that a lot with my arpeggio playing. I'll land on maybe a different note that might give it a little zazazoo, so to speak, a little spice. Like if I'm playing an A minor 9 arpeggio, that's the arpeggio there, root 9 or second, I might land on the 9 because I like the way that sounds. See, kind of jazzy. I stopped on the 9 instead of going back to the root. Passing tone is a very cool thing to do. So we'll be spending a lot of time picking out the really strong intervals and landing on them and using that to really spice up your playing. When you go to a certain chord, landing on a note of that chord is a really good way of phrasing and emphasizing the chord and in your soloing, as opposed to just blowing anything over it. You got to kind of know the notes on the neck, know where they are, and know the intervals and how they relate to the chords. So we're going to be spending some more time on this in the coming module. But for now, read the booklet that comes with this DVD that talks about chord construction, and just understand where I'm coming from when I say roots, thirds, fifths, sevenths. See you in the next module.